Hey guys, Desolator Magic here. You may have noticed that one of the best perks with the modern format for MTG is definitely that the cards never cycle out. Unless a card gets banned, if you have a modern card, it is going to be legal forever. The starting point is of course 8th edition, and anything after that is legal with a couple exceptions from special sets. That means that, sparing a card getting banned, you can build a deck and just keep it forever and then play in official modern format tournaments. It's good for you, but it's kind of bad for Wizards because they don't tend to obviously then make money on it because you could keep your cards forever, but sometimes they get destroyed and sometimes, they print Modern Masters and get more people into Modern, and just the format existing makes them money, and I think they're happy with that. Just kidding, I doubt they're happy with that. Did you know, though, that one of the major complaints about Modern is that it never changes and it never cycles out? It is the most stale, repetitive, unchanging pile of crap in the history of Magic. Every single tournament, it's the same stupid decks. It's been the same decks for 5+ years. Remember that episode of Star Trek Voyager where they enter the Q continuum and it's like an old west kind of thing with like a rest stop? Everybody just sits around saying absolutely nothing and not even moving, not doing anything because everything's already been said that could have possibly been said. Everything's already been done that could have possibly been done because they live in basically eternity, or at least like 14 billion years or whatever. Okay, that's the modern format. That is the personification of the modern format. You can play one land and I probably already know what deck you're playing. Oh look, Inkmoth Nexus. I know exactly what you're going to cast, I know what's in your hand, I know why you mulliganed. I mean, great, that's good for me, right? No, not really. I know exactly how to shut down your deck and it's a hit or miss, and that's another problem with Modern that I'm not even going to get into, the whole you shut it down or you don't. But basically, the top decks have been pretty well established mathematically because it's been a sufficient amount of time, totally unlike Standard. And Wizards apparently says, yeah, that's the point. We're not going to ban the top couple decks just to freshen it up, just to shake things up so people actually want to watch Modern tournaments. They said, no, let's leave it as stale as possible. And yeah, that's what Modern was built for. So I somewhat agree with that. Modern was built so that you don't have to rebuild a new deck, and they're not just going to say, okay, the top decks that used to be good, they're disqualified now, and you have to go build something else. The whole point was you keep your older cards and play with them. So they've been as conservative as possible when it comes to banning, just because that's the spirit of the format, but there was the perfect format at one time, and I just don't see why they don't bring it back. Okay, I totally see why they don't bring it back, but it was called Extended, and it was the actual precursor to Modern. Now, they tweaked Extended so many times I can barely even describe it. Instead of being a static start point format, it was a rotating format, but it contained the last couple blocks before the Standard block. So it would rotate at the same time as Standard, but it would contain more sets than Standard. Thus the fitting name Extended. Now, Extended was a really, really big thing until Modern kind of took over because people are thinking, cool, I can spend no money and have a deck forever. Yay, screw you, Extended. And its popularity grew just solely because of that. Well, that and the fact that they could use cards that were older than Extended. So in 2013, in August actually, they got rid of Extended. Here's the problem. Ever since then, and honestly even before then, it was unbelievably boring in Modern. It's just the same decks over and over and over, and as time goes on, it only gets worse. Wizards has, admittedly, in their own interviews, even though they'll never openly make this statement altogether, but evidently this is true, they have tried to print a couple cards in Standard that made new Modern decks that were Tier 1. You guys might be familiar with one of them. It was called the Eldrazi deck. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It was a format ruining disaster. It made people quit the game. It made people not show up to tournaments. All the pros were pissed, and then they had to ban it. So that went really well. So sliding in another deck to be on par with the top couple decks in Modern by printing a new card in Standard, never going to happen. Although, I think there were a couple in Kaladesh that brought a couple Tier 2 decks up quite a bit. But then again, Modern players move slower than the average Glacier, so it'll be years before we figure out if somebody puts a Kaladesh card in a Modern deck and gets it to work. And by to work, I mean wins the tournament so that all the net deck and copycats popularize the deck. So Modern can stay how it is. I'm not saying they should get rid of Modern. If people want to sit there and play with the same 3 or 4 or 5 decks over and over and over and over and over, or have no chance of winning, those are your two options, go for it. If somebody thinks that that's fun, whatever. I mean, they're obviously mentally deranged, but whatever. If that's what they want to do, you know, America, freedom, do what you want. But I think for the more intelligent, you know, pro deck building people that just want to use their cards a little bit longer than the incredibly short standard cycle, there's Extended. I mean, if you think about all the problems it solves and what market there would be these days, I think it's time to bring it back. It's been just over 3 years, and that's 3 years filled with the same decks over and over and over. Modern got so boring that they had to remove it from the Pro Tour because nobody was interested in watching it. That is not the actual stated reason by Wizards, but they honestly didn't even give a reason, so I'm filling in the gaps. Now, it's pretty hard to say what the actual rules for Extended are because it was based on blocks, and now blocks are 2 sets instead of 3 sets. But the official, unofficial ruling is it's the 8 most recent blocks are legal. So right now it would be Kaladesh and the, Aether Revolt, but not yet. And then Eldritch Moon and SOI are legal. And then you go back another one, and it would be Oath of the Gatewatch and Battle for Zendikar. Before that, then it would be Origins and Dragons of Tarkir. Khans and Fate Reforged are in their own block because it's 2-2-2-2-2 all the way back. And then, of course, you got the Theros block, including Magic 2015. And then, technically, the Return to Ravnica block would have cycled out at the release of Kaladesh. I'm not 100% sure I've got that right, but I think I counted it correctly. So just imagine, you can keep all the modern, new Phyrexian mana garbage out of the format. You could keep all the just horrifically OP as balls cards out of the format, and just go back and play with Devotion. Just think of Devotion mixed with the cards right now. I mean, I build the deck and I'm like, wow, this would be a great Devotion deck. It's almost so good I should build it in Modern. In Extended, it would be very, very viable to build super, super souped up Devotion decks. And that's what really Extended would be, is it would be the older mechanics taken to the max with cards outside of their blocks. That's the most typical type of deck. So if you really, really, really like Theros, you can play with it until fall of 2017. This is approximately 4 total years of cards, and I just think that that sounds fun just looking at the schedule right now, because it doesn't go into too many blocks. I mean, 8th edition was a long time ago, and that's where Modern cuts off. So really, it would just be souped up standard. I mean, you couldn't get just nuts with these combos of cards that were printed 10 years apart and were never even play tested together, although for Extended, the cards were never play tested together either. Well, except for 1/3 to 1/4 of them, which are obviously intended to be in standard at the same time. So the whole unfair deck thing is not as big of a deal because you have less cards to build with total. The cards are more balanced, and unless you find an interaction between extremely old and extremely new, you're probably not going to get some ridiculous OP infinite combo. If you built a deck, you could theoretically keep it for like 3 to 4 years, although it would almost have to be block constructed at that point because you're slowly losing a couple cards off the tail end every time if you used every single block to actually build it. Just probability-wise, you would have a higher probability overall to be able to keep a deck, though, just by fixing it. Like, oh, I lost a kill spell. Okay, I'll put in a slightly different kill spell. Not a big deal. Now, if Theros goes out and Devotion goes out, okay, your Devotion deck is dead. You need to give it up. But most of the cards would have been from Theros. So, like I said, kind of block constructed. You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to use other cards, but the main core is from the Theros block. In fact, the Theros set. I would love to build like a Delirium deck that uses cards all the way back to Theros. I think that would be absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's some Khans of Tarkir cards that would be amazing. I mean, obviously, Journey to Nyx had a ton of enchantment creatures, counts as an enchantment and a creature in the graveyard, I do believe, according to the rulings. It would be really, really fun. I mean, you could just take these individual mechanics and max them out with older cards. So I think they should really bring back Extended just because it does rotate. It does encourage people to buy the standard cards because, oh, the new cards came out. Hey, I can improve my Extended deck. Cool. It improves sales, and it's way more fun to watch than the unbelievable bore of a chess game inside of a golf match that is Modern. I mean, honestly, have you watched the coverage? Even the announcers are trying to fake how they're excited. Oh, it's Affinity again. Let's see if he wins on turn 3. This is so exciting. Oh, good, it's a mirror match. Somebody kill me. I think that the number one benefit and the number one draw would be the fact that if your standard deck cycles out of standard, you could say, okay, let's make it an extended deck. And then you don't need the ridiculous modern land base that costs hundreds of dollars. You don't need, the Path to Exiles, the Gitaxian probes, all the modern staples that are in virtually every deck. You could just ignore them and look at a slightly bigger card pool, improve your deck, and boom, you've got a super standard deck. So you actually take a standard deck that would normally be disassemble worthy. It's completely useless outside of casual. There's no way you're going to turn it into modern for cheap. And you could actually do something with it. You could say, I'm upgrading it to the extended version of this deck. It's now more powerful, and I'm going to keep playing with it because I absolutely love this deck. And then at a certain point, you are forced to stop playing with the deck, but you get years out of it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It just sounds like a ton of fun. What do you guys think? Should they bring back extended? I mean, the one downside would be, it's now another format to track, another one to keep track of, another one to explain to new players, making the game more complex, taking up, players at a tournament. You obviously can't play standard and extended and modern at the same tournament unless they, make it days longer. I mean, with side events, okay, they could probably get it done, but if they made it a major format, it would be a little crowded. I mean, you'd have to split your attention between them. I think it's just another excuse to sell cards, though. I mean, why not? For the more conservative players that want to keep a deck longer, it's the perfect middle road between that and modern. One thing I should say, though, is that you can play whatever you want. You can play Prismatic, Blitzkrieg. I'm trying to think of other exotic formats that I totally don't play. Plains Chase or Planar Chase, whatever the hell they call it. Gee, maybe I should watch the video I did on that format. So you could just get with your playgroup and say, hey guys, let's resume extended. Look at the schedule online. It's posted. People have made it. That's the card pool we're enforcing. Let's play. Totally nothing stopping you from doing it if it sounds fun. Hey, if it sounds fun, build decks with an 8 limit instead of 4 limit on individual cards. I mean, do whatever you want. People seriously get way too obsessed with the rules at MTG. You can do whatever you want outside of structured play. I've heard of people playing 40 card deck limit 3. I mean, it's just mini deck. Oh, and all mill decks aren't allowed. So let me know what you think about extended and if they should officially bring it back down in the comments section. And if you think that modern is not boring and it's very complex and changing, you're an idiot and you're wrong, but leave that anyway. The Eldrazi don't count, damn it, you're still wrong. It didn't change anything, it just pissed people off. And I'm not saying some people didn't find it completely hilarious with the pros all getting their undies in a bundle over, oh no, modern changed for the first time in 5 years, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Spoiler alert, I was one of those people. Anyway, I'll see you guys next video.